What's up, my dudes? RF finally did it, boys. They finally brought back some pre-made ruts and roughness to their motocross tracks. I can't believe it. It only took them 5 years. No big deal. You know, just half a decade. No biggie. So I'm sure a lot of you guys expect me to congratulate RF or something like that. It's like, yeah, bro, let me congratulate you for taking 5 years to bring back something that you never should have taken away. Yeah, bro, that makes a lot of sense. But don't get me wrong. If there is anybody that is happy to see some pre-made ruts, it is the Galaxy Boy, okay? I don't know why they ever took it out of the game. I've been saying it since they ever took it out of the game 5 years ago. Where the hell's all the pre-made ruts? All right? So, remember what I told you, boys? Do you remember? Just think back. I said, eventually, it may take them some time. It may take years and years and years, but eventually RF will realize that you simply cannot have those flat tracking highway bullshit ass track designs, and they will slowly but surely over time start to make these tracks more and more and more like those 2017 back in the, you know, the glory golden heyday of the motocross tracks in this game. What did I tell you, boys? I said, just wait. Eventually, they'll wake up. Eventually, they'll start to realize, you know, you have to have pre-made. You have to have ruts on a motocross track. That's literally what it is. That's what makes a motocross track what it is. So, but unfortunately, it's just taken them half a decade to do it. But yes, we do have some pre-made here. Now, the thing that does need to be discussed is just because they brought back some pre-made doesn't mean that it's instantly like as good as a 2017 motocross track, or it's, you know, a really amazing motocross track. I think some of you guys are getting a little bit tricked up just because there has been basically no ruts and roughness on the tracks for the last 5 years. You know, it's been that small, built around a road kind of crap, right? So I think it's tricking some of you guys up into thinking that this track is a lot better than what it really is, just simply because of the tracks being so bad for the last 5 years in the game. But the real truth of the matter is this is the tightest, smallest, slowest RF motocross track that I feel like they have ever made before. I mean, it is like GNCC level, you know, trail level tightness to the ruts. Yeah, you can tune the bike, you can change some stuff with the bike to get it to go through it a little bit better, but it is bizarre if you go from like a, you know, back in the 2015, 16, 17 style motocross tracks and you hop on this track right here. Even though there's some pre-made, it's still like a totally different kind of motocross track to me. This is way slower than what I think of as actual motocross. Let me give you a good example here, okay? You can run maximum acceleration gearing on a 450 on this track and never tap the bike out. That is just not something that you can do on any of those 2017 pro motocross tracks. There's always at least one or two different spots where if you're running max excel gearing, you're going to have it in fifth gear, you know, tapping the bike out. There's typically going to be a couple spots on a 2017 track where you can do that, but just to explain the actual tightness and the slower pace of this track right here, that's a good example of it. You can run max excel gearing and never tap the bike out in fifth gear because there's no spots on the track where you can open up the bike enough to even do that, okay? But Yeah, also, the other thing I wanted to say about this track is a big thing that I feel like is missing is there's no ruts on the jump faces. There's like a little bit of roughness, kind of, sort of, on like the base of the jump face. But as far as actually having ruts going up the jump faces, there's basically none of that. And I feel like the jumps are a little bit like, I don't know, they're too small. They're too easy. Like, I understand this is Fox Raceway. I get it, you know. It's kind of that more weird, tighter style, man-made style dirt bike track. I totally understand all that, but, you know, there's a little bit of ruts here and there, I guess, on some of this, but, like, there's just not, I don't know, it's got a weird kind of feeling to it to me. Like, it doesn't really feel like motocross kind of flow to the ruts. It's almost like they forgot how to actually make, you know, the ruts flow like a true motocross track is, because it's been so long since they've made pre-made like this. That's kind of what it seems like to me. Like they've just kind of forgotten how to actually make the corners flow and make the track flow and make the jumps where they don't literally feel like a, you know, MXGP game kind of jump where you're barely coming off of the ground. Like MX Simulator has never really, you know, had that feeling to it, so I don't know why they would start that now, but definitely seems like they're going for more of a hyper-realistic style to the track. Again, this goes back into that. I feel like it's just not, like, it just doesn't work as good when you do that. When you go for that one-to-one scaling, you know, a video game is just different than real life. And I feel like in the pro racing of this, you know, it was so single file. The only time people were passing anybody is if somebody fell down. Like, it's just not as good for racing when you make everything this tight. So anyways, that's just kind of what I've noticed with it. Definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys thought about the track. I mean, you know, obviously I 1,000,000% prefer this kind of track over any of that bullshit they've been making for the last 5 years. You know, obviously, like, don't get it twisted, you know what I'm saying? Don't get it titty twisted, you know what I'm saying, dog? Like, trust me, I prefer pre-made over not pre-made, but this is not, I think some people are getting confused into thinking because they brought back some pre-made, then this is like exactly like the best pre-made dirt bike, you know, motocross tracks that's ever been on MX Sim, or it's comparable to, like, you know, the 17, you know, motocross tracks pre-made or something like that, and it's really not. One big thing that makes this track a lot different is, oh, by the way, I think it actually, if I hit replay like that, it'll save the Erode, so let me actually restart this replay. So basically, the way I would explain this track is it's kind of like a half pre-made, half built for a road kind of track. That's pretty much what it is. And the way you know that is because every single rut on the track is literally the exact same size. It's not like a 2017 where all the ruts had all that kind of character to them, and, you know, you'd have some of the outside ruts would be bigger, so it would balance out the lines. Like, you don't really have any of that. All the ruts are the exact same size, just like they would have been like the last 5 years. They're just bigger. They're just a little bit bigger overall, and there's more roughness on the track than what you would have had the last 5 years. But everything else is basically the same. So you see how it's not really like a you know, like a golden age or like a whatever kind of shit you want to call it. It's not really like that. You can kind of get tricked up into thinking that if you've not rode on those kind of tracks in a long time, but yeah, this is definitely one of those kind of tracks I would say is just, it's just too tight for its own good. The ruts, it's like I'm saying, it's more, it feels more like you're going through like trail ruts. You know, the tightness of them, it's like, it's got that kind of trail rut kind of vibe to it more than like carry the momentum like a real motocross style rut. This is probably the most wide open spot of the whole track right here. But yeah, a lot of the outside ruts just become completely useless because, like I say, they don't really balance out the lines any. They just made all the ruts the same size. Like, oh, you're gonna go in there and deform the inside ruts, and then you'll make those bigger. But it kind of makes a lot of the outside ruts completely useless, whereas back in the 17 days, they would actually balance out the ruts a little bit, and they would make the inside ruts smaller than the outside ruts, so it would make it where you could try to carry that speed around the outside and bank off of that bigger rut to carry more speed, or you could go up the inside, cut off the track time, but it was a smaller rut on the inside. This track is more like 90% of the corners, you're going to go the first two inside ruts, or you're just going to lose time. So, you see what I'm saying? Kind of like, even though there is some pre-made here, it still is lacking some character when you compare it to like a 2017 or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Jumps just don't even really feel like jumps here. There's just no real challenge to the jumps on this track. I know, just watched some of the real-life Fox Raceway motos, and it looked like they were struggling on some of those jumps. But that is not the case here. So, you know, you can sit there and try to gas up RF all you want to in your head like they're doing a perfect job. But the reality of it is, this track, I think, is still entirely based off of last year. So, you know, you can throw all that realism out the door. And the fact that a lot of you boys, you get confused on what scaling actually means. You know, you think that, like, oh, well, if it's tighter and it's, you know, everything's kind of weird and narrow and shit, because that's like how the real life Fox Raceway is. But what you don't understand is RF, most of their tracks this year are probably going to be like this kind of tight and this kind of, you know, weird kind of the way the ruts curve through the corners. That's probably how they're going to do most of the rounds this year. So it don't really have anything to do with they just did it like this because it's Fox Raceway. You're giving RF too much credit, bro. That's not the truth. They're doing it this way because they think this is how they're going to start doing all the motocross tracks, right? That's why they're doing it like this. But it goes back into that, it's not literally real life dirt bike racing, it's a video game. And I'm just telling you, it kind of feels to me like what they've done is they've made motocross feel more like supercross, and they've made supercross feel more like motocross. It's like they're not as separate as they used to be, right? Like, for instance, this motocross track right here is more like supercross type tightness and speed than it is like motocross style speed. And with their supercross tracks with the Erode system, you know, they've started to make those feel more like motocross tracks. It's kind of weird. But this is not motocross level speed. It's just not. Like on MX Sim, it's just not. And part of that is the tile map, the feeling of the dirt. It's got a very friction-y, kind of almost loamy, sandy kind of feeling to it. But the weird part is when you start to get the deformation on the track, it seems to not only actually build up the ruts, but it also seems to add some sort of more grippy traction to the track. That's something I've noticed that's really bizarre. It's like, I can only see RF doing some weird shit like that, but I swear, when you start getting the Erode developed on this track, it doesn't just feel like you're building up the rut more. It literally feels like you're building up the rut more and you're adding traction to the actual feeling of the dirt. And I think that RF I think they've been doing that on their Supercross tracks too. That's what it felt like to me on that last round of their Supercross track. It felt like once it actually got deformed, the bike was just hooking up more everywhere. And that's not because it's hooking up more in a bigger deformed rut. It's hooking up more because they've literally added something to the terrain deformation where it changes the traction of the track. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. I don't know why they wouldn't just go in there and, make the traction like it is when you get the deformation on it, and then just make the deformation build up the ruts. That would be like more, logical. But RF doesn't do a lot of logical things, man. I mean, it took them 5 years to put ruts back on the motocross track. Are you really going to trust RF with anything that they're doing? Come on, bro. What did Spency Boy tell you the whole time? They'll eventually make this shit more and more like a 2017 track. They're doing that exact thing, bro. They're doing exactly what I've been telling you for the past 5 years, dog. They're doing it to a Turley tea sipping tea, bro. I'm telling you, bro.